all the things nobody should talk about in a public forum. Let's hit religion, politics.
Let's just point out that you brought them both up. So
I did.
Than just laying there, but let's go ahead and see what happens if we poke it with a stick.
It was probably some like creepy guy in like a mausoleum or something who got in there and was just like, a little bit curious, found a stick lying on the floor, gave it a poke, heard a groan. Sometime in the 17th century, a gentleman with the most unfortunate name met with the most tragic of circumstances, Mr. Johannescuntius, and yes, that is his real name. Can you even imagine the nicknames he got for that one? How did we miss these people? Sneaky, culty bastards.
But they didn't invite us.
Yeah, I didn't even get an email. Like, come on, guys.
They never send flowers.
It's not like a Jehovah's Witness temple, and this is actually probably one of the creepiest cults that I'd never heard of, to be quite honest. I'd heard of all the other ones. I've heard of, the Branch Davidians.
The creepiest one you've never heard of.
The creepiest cult you've never heard of. Obviously I've heard of Branch Davidians. They're very famous. I've heard of Heaven's Gates. I've heard of the Jones massacres and the Jones guy. And the Order of the Solar Temple, I had honestly never heard of. So it was nice and interesting to be able to delve into. And it could ejaculate. No, it won't. It won't ejaculate. It will eject. It will eject. It will eject. Not ejaculate.
I've been
Wrong
waiting
word.
for you to work that word.
I had it written down as a note. I'm like, work in ejaculation.
I knew it.
Into a huge fucking nerd. That's what you did. Snow globes and stamps. Fun fact, actually, I did used to collect stamps when I was a kid. When I say collect stamps, I mean I had a lot of stamps in a box, and that was about as far as I'd gone with collecting stamps. But I inherited an awful lot of them from my grandmother, who also used to collect stamps. And she had in turn inherited those from her family before her. And I actually had stamps from World War II with the swastika and Hitler's head on them from Germany. So I don't think that they're...
But beyond that, ghost hunters say it's all about having fun with friends, telling stories, fleshing out the mystery, even if evidence can't be materialized.
Yeah. Materialized. There's the pun. But what you said there as well, also, I think that touched on something interesting, and it's basically the label that we give to it, because it's a haunting or it's a visitation. If it's a loved one that's coming to see you and sit on the end of your bed, it's still a dead person crossing over from the other side who's coming and
Right.
making contact with you. But because you have an emotional attachment to that person, because they deliver some sort of closure, or they basically bring up a positive feeling inside of you, that is not considered to be a haunting. Though, if
That's fair. That's a fair point.
In the broad statement of it, yes, it is, because
it really was an evil entity.
Okay.
I went in there and I did a clearing, and I tried to, kind of talk to this individual, and a lot of crazy things had happened that didn't make it on the film because all the equipment had just shut off and broke down. My microphone exploded. So it was so many crazy experiences.
But who gets rejected for past life regression? What the hell? What the hell? But I know that you've done past life regression. So do you mind sharing your experience of that with us?
I do, but I want to, I'm happy to, but I want to also reiterate the idea that during our episodes, you have requested to have cult members knock on your door. You've wanted UFOs to come pick you up. You want to visit a ghost. And now even the very human regressionists have rejected you.
What is happening? Like, what is going on? Can I please be included in something paranormal? I'm starting to feel very left out here. I'm starting to feel very left out. No cults, no alien abductions, no ghosts, no hauntings, no possessions, nothing. Why am I even on a podcast?
Needy.
Hashtag needy. And like big question mark over why. If you've ever felt like you're being watched when you're alone at home, or caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows, a dark that's darker than the dark, then today's episode is for you. We're talking about shadow people. And Stone, I gotta admit that I cannot possibly imagine how the hell science is going to explain this one.
It's interesting. There are some
I've often heard of extraterrestrial race that are blue-skinned. Orbs are definitely evidences of life forms in different shapes that appear in naked eye in this particular reality as an orb. But within that orb, for that orb, that could be a whole world, a whole universe within that orb.
Feel a little boy's hand on my knee. I'm on the couch. I feel this hand on my knee, like rubbing my knee lightly. And he goes, "Excuse me, miss, I think it's time to get up now." And I didn't open my eyes yet. And I just figured, oh, it must be the little boy from last night. He must have slept over, you know? So I opened my eyes because I was going to tell him, "Oh, I'm good. I'm still tired." But when I opened my eyes, there was nobody there. No one.
So they reportedly encountered the black-eyed children at around 3 p.m., which again, a little bit different because it's always usually nighttime accounts. They reported them around 3 p.m. while leisurely driving, as one does, around the small village and enjoying the autumn weather in the Picardy region of France. Vive la France! They stopped. But, you know, again, it comes back to this idea of like mental health for me, and that, you know, it's if it isn't a legitimate possession and you aren't being inhabited by an entity, that you know, it probably has a lot to do with mental health and dissociative disorders and schizophrenia and, you know, those sorts of like mental health where you have kind of identity crisis of identity and things like that. One of the things that I do know that I looked at in my research as well is that in modern exorcisms now, and apparently within the last like 2 decades or so, the Roman Catholic Church has really put a lot of focus on training a lot more exorcists, particularly in America, because, you know, hashtag America. I don't know why. You can ask the Pope. Bash an email out to the Pope.
Hashtag Hollywood.
Get the Pope on Twitter. Ask him what that's about. But
Right.
they have been training up a lot more exorcists because they believe.
The greys, there's various. You've got the greys that work for the reptilians, and you've got the greys that work for the Nordics. You've got the greys. So the greys, in my opinion, are not living. They're almost like a biomechanical organism. So they're almost robotic.
I am trying to make him a better person,
You are.
podcast by podcast.
That's what your plan has been all along. Is just like one episode at a time, to slowly make me
How to
into
boil a frog.
how to make me a better human. You're probably writing a fucking self-help book, like a how-to book on the side there, aren't you? I know you.
I might
You've
let
always
my
got
dad
something.
listen to this one now.
You've always got something
now that he
going on.
understands the strategy.
Trying to bring him to Jesus, Daddy. Bringing him to Jesus.
And, you know, because they are living among us, and they're huge fans of the podcast. They are. Because, you know, I mean, that's how radio waves work. And when we put things onto the internet and they're broadcast out there, somewhere in the Pleiades cluster right now, someone's like, fuck, these guys are funny. You know,
That's 500 light years away. But it is funny because my mom did say a few weeks ago when I was talking to her, she goes, have you and Xander, that's how she talks, have you and Xander considered the possibility that one day the aliens could be listening to your podcast? I was like, oh, I really hadn't thought about
that's
it.
pretty much.
This podcast is a proud member of the Paranormality Podcast Network.